Well, Operation Epic Fury is well and truly underway, with the US Department of War and the Israeli Defense Force absolutely wiping the floor with the Iranian regime. And it was off to a very good start when a building that contained a very important meeting with the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and many of his top officials was absolutely flattened. That building is now in more pieces than the Lego Millennium Falcon. So I'm pretty sure they are bummed that they didn't have that meeting over Zoom. And so Operation Epic Fury just getting started, and the entire Iranian Navy getting destroyed piece by piece, along with every other piece of weaponry that they have. I have not seen a battle this one-sided since the Brazil versus Germany game back in 2014. You guys remember that? Yeah, that wasn't pretty. And neither is this war, but it is necessary. And so you might be saying, well, hang on, why are they starting another war? What about the power vacuum when the regime is defeated? Well, those are all good questions. We're going to get into all of them today. So let's dig into it. Let's begin by having a look at some very epic footage put out this week by the Department of War.
Unclassified video shared by the U.S. military as Secretary Hegseth says in the Indian Ocean, an American submarine sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. Instead, it was sunk by a torpedo. Quiet death, the first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. Like in that war, back when we were still the War Department, we are fighting to win.
So it looks like Trump and the Department of War aren't that interested in fighting wars. They're much more interested in just going out there and winning them. So here's an update from Admiral Brad Cooper in the last few days of the US and Israeli combined efforts.
We are now starting our 6th day of a historic mission to eliminate Iran's ability to threaten Americans. We are, if I could channel my inner Navy officer, we are at full speed ahead in executing orders given by leadership in Washington. The President and Secretary Hegseth have been crystal clear in their expectations, and we are at a high level of execution. As described by the Secretary and earlier this week by me, U.S. combat power is building as Iranian combat power declines. Our air dominance allows us to hit Iran's center of gravity with overwhelming power and reach. A couple of examples. In just the last 72 hours, America's bomber force has struck nearly 200 targets deep inside of Iran, including around Tehran. And in just the last hour, U.S. B-2 bombers dropped dozens of 2,000-pound penetrator bombs, targeting deeply buried ballistic missile launchers. Notably, we've also struck Iran's equivalent of Space Command, which degrades their ability to threaten Americans.
How incredibly refreshing that there is a president in America who has a spine, someone who's willing to stamp out evil and bring relief, freedom, and hope to the people of Iran. But it has to be said, where are the radical left, the so-called champions of human rights, the Green Party, Tapati Modi, Chloe, Marama, where are you now? Where were you, in fact, back in January when tens of thousands of Iranians were shot down in the streets, their family members made to pay for the bullets of those that they love, when they were pushing up against this oppressive regime? Where were the marches? Where were the banners? Where were the scarves and the outcry on social media? Well, now they've got something to say, those cowards. Now they're calling this attack on this evil man and those that propagated his regime, those attacks that have bring freedom to the people of Iran, well, those are illegal and unprovoked. Why do they only care about the bloodshed of certain people and not others? That's the type of people you're dealing with the Greens. This man who led this regime, the Ayatollah, he brought suffering to millions of people. This is a man who said that women should be raped in prison before they are killed so that they don't go to heaven when they die. This man was responsible for torturing women when they did not wear the hijabs. Why is it only his blood and those that follow him that these Green Party members seem to care about? These are the same people that would throw you off a building without hesitation for being homosexual and for not wearing a black sheet over your face. That's the people that you seem to care about. What about the bloodshed that they cause? What about October 7th? Where was your outcry about that? Well, this Iranian woman, she had something to say about this hypocrisy the other day on the news. I'm going to play that for you now.
It's around a month ago when the regime was killing Iranian people in the streets in Iran. Many of us here in New Zealand, like Iranians anywhere in the world, so we had this deep feeling of pain and mourning for our country, and we were feeling lonely. barely anyone contacted us to ask, how are you doing? And now it's really interesting that in the last 2 days, we received messages from friends, colleagues, journalists coming to us to check in. And we appreciate, of course, all this approaching, the community. But I'm talking about a pattern that shows that our solidarity, our empathy is mainly shaped by the ideological narratives, by media coverage. And it seems to be, morality seems to be selective. And I'm talking about the political parties and the so-called human rights activists who were silent last month when the massacre was happening, and now they are rushing to issue the statements condemning the strikes or even organizing protests in front of the US Embassy to support Iranians. And the fact is that during the massacre in Iran, they didn't support us, and even they were questioning us. They were questioning the authenticity of this revolution.
Why are they? I know exactly what you're talking about. Why do you think they're doing that?
I think it's obvious, as I said, the morality has become selective, This is hypocrisy there, that we support people and we support human rights only when it is aligned with our ideological
and our
framework.
Political beliefs.
And as I told you, for Iranians, the national interest of this nation has been proved to be aligned with some of its neighbors and some of the countries in the region, Israel, that they don't like it. And that's why they prefer to be quiet about what happened in Iran.
Well, I studied international law and the law of armed conflicts as part of my Bachelor of Law, and I was also in the New Zealand Defence Force, so we looked at it there too on a more basic level. And the first thing I would say is that people massively oversimplify the situation by saying this is legal and this is not. It's not like domestic law where there's clear black and white rules and then there are people who enforce those rules. Instead, arguments around self-defense and maintaining international peace begin to emerge. And the Security Council are meant to be making these kind of decisions, but what happens when they are spineless globalist cowards who have done nothing about the Iranian regime for almost 50 years? Well, they have caused terror locally and abroad, and as I said before, they have been yelling death to America and are trying very hard to get nuclear weapons to make that a reality. And so many who say international law is a complete farce, I think, have a very good argument. And how can it mean anything if it isn't capable of confronting the structures that violate it? And they are simply hiding behind inaction. And meanwhile, the Iranians suffer and are told that there are more peaceful ways out of their suffering. So that is where international law has got us so far. Meanwhile, America and Israel are being thanked by the Iranians for having the guts to help them and help the rest of the world. So I'd encourage you, if you're hearing the cries from the lefties who are so upset about the supposed breach of international law, just thank the Lord that they weren't in charge back in World War II, or we'd all be speaking German or Japanese by now. Because if a group of people are suffering that they don't care about, well then sovereignty trumps human rights and freedoms. Oh, and by the way, they're acting like this war just started this week. This war began 47 years ago when Iran made it their goal to destroy the West. Trump's just decided that 2026 is a good year to end that war, and that's what he's doing. And this is how the people of Iran are reacting to the help of America.
Well, Iranians around the world have been taking to the streets to celebrate, in some instances, following US and Israeli strikes on Iran. Iranians in London were heard chanting "Long live the King" while waving flags from the pre-1979 Islamic Revolution. Similarly, in Los Angeles, thousands of Iranian Americans danced and waved flags, calling these strikes a liberation.
My reaction of this attack is excitement and hope for the Iranian people, for freedom and democracy in Iran. As you can see, the atmosphere is almost like a party.
I think that it was the only option left because I believe people inside of Iran had no other choice. They were literally begging for help. They wrote it on walls. They put it all over. They needed this to happen in order for them to be a secular, free Iran.
Meanwhile, locally in Melbourne's Federation Square, a few dozen members of the local Iranian community have gathered to celebrate the death of the Supreme Leader.
This is basically a moment that we are hoping it's our Berlin Wall moment. We are hoping that IRGC will end. We are hoping that this is the end of them, not just end of Khamenei, end of Islamic Republic that occupies Iran.
I just feel like crying
out of happiness, and I'm so happy.
All right, so America is busy kicking the backside of the terrorist funding Iranian regime, but there are people asking some good questions. What happens when they win, for example? Because clearly Trump isn't interested in this being another Afghanistan or Iraq. And so they are making short and easy work of the enemy. But what happens once they've won this war? Well, that's where it gets a bit more complicated, because people have fairly pointed out that when the West topple a dictator, a power struggle and a civil war often take place. Because the problem with Iran, first and foremost, the foundation of all of its issues, is the fact that their theological foundation is rotten. In the modern world, we've believed the lie that theology doesn't really matter. Theology being what you believe about God. But that couldn't be further from the truth, because theology is crucial, fundamental to every society, and the reason why the West have had the healthiest, wealthiest, most thriving societies, families, and communities in all of human history is because they are founded on biblical truths. The first of which being that all people, men and women, are created in the image of God and therefore have value and worth. And as we move away from that, we pay the price. Iran, however, that's been built on the teachings of the Quran, and everywhere that the Sharia law is strictly enforced, people suffer. It is dictated to the people of that country. They are told what to think, how to talk, what to eat, how long their beard should be, how they should treat their wives, what they should name their kids, all of it dictated by Sharia law. But don't take my word for it. Listen to someone who has experienced it for themselves.
What's one thing about Iranians that you want the world to know that you think they don't know much about or you think is misunderstood?
Yeah, I feel like the first thing misunderstood is Islam, the main or majority of Iranian people's religion, which is not. So when I moved to Australia, the first question by default was, so you're from Iran and you're Muslim? And the answer is no. Unfortunately, 47 years of Islam being almost forced on our people, on our country, and see what happened to our country. So that would be the first thing that I would say it's misunderstood about Iranian people. And the second is how much we are peaceful, because again in the media outlets, they all hear about the Islamic regime of Iran, but they don't know people of Iran. It's different. It's Islamic regime and it's the people of Iran, and we just want peace and freedom, like just the normal human being. We want to be able to walk our dogs, and that's literally forbidden in Iran.
It's illegal to walk dogs in Iran.
It is illegal to, my auntie had a dog and they told her, if we see you walk your dog, we'll shoot your dog and you have to pay for the bullet.
Is it illegal for women to sing in public?
Yes. So the women's voice, basically, as per Islamic law, Sharia, is not allowed. So we are not allowed to sing. We are not allowed to ride motorbikes. We are not allowed to, for a very long time, we were not allowed to be prime minister, presidents, any higher kind of rank in politics as well.
And are women allowed to show their hair in public? Come on, this is a slam dunk.
I mean, come on, we all know the answer to that. Yeah, if I go out like this in Iran, that will be the last time I'll be seen on the face of the earth.
So that's what happens when a country is under Sharia law, even if they don't want to be, even if the majority of those people do not subscribe to Islam. They have no choice but to suffer under the ruling of Sharia law. And so we're going to have a look at a few more examples of Sharia law now, which has been formed over time, but it's derived from the Quran itself. So we're going to go and have a look at those original sources, starting in Surah 5, verse 38. It says this: "As for male and female thieves, cut off their hands for what they have done, a deterrent from Allah." Here's another one, Surah 24, verse 2. "As for male and female fornicators, give each one of them 100 lashes, and do not let pity for them make you lenient in enforcing the law of Allah if you truly believe in Allah and the last day. And let a number of believers witness their punishment." In Surah 4, verse 3, it says that men can have up to 4 wives, and that's not to mention the concubines they can gather along the way. In 4:11, it says that a man should receive twice the inheritance of a woman. Islam also allows for men to beat their wives into submission. This is found in Surah 4, verse 34. It says, "Men are in charge of women because Allah hath made the one of them excel the other, and because they spend of their property to support the woman. So good women are the obedient, guarding in secret that which Allah hath guarded. As for those for whom ye fear rebellion, admonish them and banish them to beds apart and scourge them." So rebellious wives should be scourged by their husbands according to the Quran. It says that you need 2 women to have a testimony in court to match the testimony's worth of 1 man. And there's plenty more where that came from, because these rules are supposedly divinely inspired. And this is where Sharia law comes from. It needs to be expounded on and implemented into the law of the land. And every single country that strictly applies Sharia law has horrific human rights abuses, and a country that is rotten from the inside. Think Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Iraq, and of course, Iran. Every country that has Sharia law as its foundation has a country where its people are suffering greatly, especially those who are vulnerable, like women. And this matters because what people are worried about is that Iran is going to become like Afghanistan, where there's a failed regime change and Muslim leaders hell-bent on strictly enforcing Sharia law rise to the top, take over and implement Sharia law, leading to more suffering and the cycle just repeating itself. And that's why I say that Iran has first and foremost a theological issue. What we believe about God, the prophets that we accept as true, it is the foundation to the societies that we live in and the communities that we build. And the countries that have built their communities on the evil lies, it's led to suffering and struggle, poverty and abuse for hundreds of years. And so how do we know? How do we know that this is going to be a successful regime change like South Korea or Japan or Germany, and not like Iraq or Afghanistan? Well, first and foremost, as I say, it's going to be theological. Will Sharia law rise back to the top and govern the people? But before we can even look at that, the war needs to be won. And the good news is that Trump and the Department of War are doing everything that is needed to achieve that victory. But after the military victory, what hope do we have for Iran? Well, I think there is a lot, because there's been polls that have been done that show that 30 to 40% of Iran are a-religious. And remember, this is a country where you can be killed for leaving Islam, so I'd say the numbers are probably a lot higher than that. In 2023, 50,000 mosques closed down, and the Christian church is growing rapidly in Iran. And many Iranians are saying that 2/3 of the country don't believe in Islam, and some are saying it's up to 90%. And that wasn't the case in Afghanistan. That is a very big difference between the two. And that difference, it gives me a lot of hope, because the people of Iran, they're tired. They're tired of being whipped 80 times for breaking their fast. They're tired of having a leader who kills tens of thousands of them in the street in a matter of days. The people of Iran, they want freedom. Does that mean that the right structures, the right leaders are guaranteed to take over? No, but there's a chance. And that chance is worth taking. And so pray for the people of Iran. Pray for the people of Iran that are sharing their faith. Pray for Israel and America that they'd have the wisdom and the favor of God to help build structures of government that are free from the evil influence of Sharia law. And instead, that the people of Iran can have a structure of biblical truth woven through it to uphold human rights in the most fundamental way. And the first truth being that all people are made in the image of God and therefore have value, worth, and dignity. Those truths have given rise to the healthiest communities in all of human history. And where Islam teaches that it is okay to beat your wife into submission, the Bible teaches in Ephesians 5 that men are to be willing to lay down their lives for their wives, to love them in the way that Jesus loves the church. And so those are the truths that build communities on a very solid foundation. All other foundations are sand. Islam is sand. And right now, Operation Fury is making very light work of that sand. It is getting very quickly washed away.